Tonight, interest rates facing new pressure as international travel and holidays at home drive inflation to a 32-year high. A 74-year-old grandmother carjacked and forced to drive for 30 minutes in a terrifying ordeal. A former Jetstar pilot tells a court he's not guilty as he's ordered to stand trial. An angry tenant confesses to starting a $5 million inferno. The PM under fire over a controversial booze ban, and Victorian parents feeling the education pinch, forced to borrow to pay for school costs.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. A Melbourne grandmother has been caught in a carjacking ordeal after she was taken hostage by an armed thug. The 74-year-old was loading groceries into her car when a man held a knife to her throat and forced her to drive for 30 terrifying minutes.
A wild, day-long crime spree comes to a crashing end in a sleepy Frankston street.
It was like Armageddon, I thought, with all the sirens going. It was like a war zone.
A 30-year-old man arrested after police say he carjacked two innocent people at knife point. Mary Tetradi held hostage in her own car for almost half an hour.
He had the knife at the beginning here and then up there, about 2 centimetres away from my throat.
The pensioner had been loading her groceries into the vehicle at Bayside Shopping Centre when the accused thug climbed into the passenger seat and demanded she drive.
He was very annoyed that I was not upset.
Police say the man forced Mary to take him on a joyride through Frankston, dropping her off in Forest Drive, Frankston North, around 30 minutes later. Without her handbag, phone or keys, Mary walked to a nearby mechanic to raise the alarm.
Like I said, she was quite calm. She said, I just really need help.
After crashing Mary's car in Frankston, the carjacker is said to have run here to nearby Seaford, where he held another man at knife point and stole his Toyota Camry. That Toyota was spotted by police near Beach Street just after 11 p.m. They tried to intercept it in Paris Street using stop sticks, but the chase continued to Alawa Avenue, coming to a crashing halt just after midnight.
By the time he got here, he was running on the rims. The front rims, the tyres had been completely shredded.
Terry and Kathy Hope watched as the 30-year-old was taken into custody.
It was lucky that no one was killed.
Jodie Lee, 7 News.
A holiday spending spree has sent inflation soaring to its highest level in more than 3 decades, putting interest rates under new pressure. The cost of living surge is also being fuelled by rising energy prices, but there is some hope that relief is in sight.
Inflation, sky high and soaring to record heights. The big driver this time, domestic holidays, up 20% in a year.
Prices are just crazy, double, triple, if not more.
I thought it would be better now that the travel's opening up, but it seems to be the opposite.
Holidays just one of a sweep of price hikes that have taken inflation to 7.8% for the year, the highest in 33 years.
This is very high inflation by historical standards. There's no use pretending otherwise. It's unacceptably high.
The key drivers after travel, new dwellings 17.8%, fuel up 13%, groceries 9%, restaurants and takeaway 7%. The total hip pocket hit, more than $7,000 for the average working Aussie. The only good news?
Our hope is that inflation has now peaked.
Horrible as these numbers are, we do think it will get better from here.
Possibly below 4% by year's end. But the bad news?
These numbers will probably tip the Reserve Bank into yet another rate hike.
A 0.25% hike almost inevitable at the RBA's next meeting, February 7. The government, though, pushing power as a positive. Despite gas climbing 17% and electricity nearly 12% in a year, today's energy market operator report reveals prices are starting to fall. And the Treasurer's revealed a $1.5 billion power bill support package for the May budget.
Cost of living relief to Australian families who are doing it tough right now.
The figures come as a new survey reports that business costs are falling for the first time in a year, freight and fuel charges dropping. But it also reports that trade is slowing. ahead of an expected collapse in household spending.
And eventually, by the end of this year, we might be looking not at rising interest rates, but falling ones.
Trying to prevent the economy landing hard. Chris Reason, 7 News.
A former Jetstar pilot has been committed to stand trial over the alleged murders of missing campers Russell Hill and Carol Clay. Estelle Griepink has the fallout at the Supreme Court, and Estelle, justice is a step closer tonight.
Well, Mitch, Greg Lynn is set to face the Supreme Court in just 3 weeks, but it's estimated his trial won't get underway for several months at least. Late this afternoon, he formally entered his pleas of not guilty, and that means it's now up to a jury to determine just what happened at that Wonnangatta campsite.
From mystery to murder trial, Greg Lynn will now face a jury in the Supreme Court. The former Jetstar captain is charged with murdering campers Russell Hill and Carol Clay at a remote campsite in March 2020. During a 4-day committal hearing, a court heard a theory that Ms Clay was shot in the head as Lynn and Mr Hill wrestled over a shotgun. Police allege Lynn put the pair's bodies in his trailer before returning to the high country months later and burning their remains. Today, a magistrate told Lynn he'd considered the evidence before him and deemed it sufficient to support a conviction. When the former pilot was formally committed to stand trial, he didn't react. His only words, "Not guilty, Your Honour," when asked to enter a plea. The court previously heard police secretly gathered more than 5,000 wiretap recordings as part of their investigation. But much of their case against Lynn has been kept from the public, his lawyer successfully arguing the information could influence a future trial. Preparations for those proceedings will now get underway as the accused killer faces justice. Estelle Griepink, 7 News.
An angry tenant has confessed to starting a $5 million fire to get back at his landlord. The blaze blanketed South Melbourne in smoke and forced hundreds of school children to flee.
An enormous warehouse fire that shrouded South Melbourne in toxic smoke, sparked by an act of vengeance. Angry tenant Jaden Tune had recently been evicted from his recording studio when he torched the Farrar Street business owned by his landlord. The 32-year-old was caught on security cameras pouring petrol through a broken window, then igniting the building with a cigarette lighter. Flames rapidly engulfed the warehouse in minutes. 50 firefighters tackled the blaze as the roof caved in. The building was filled with plastic and rubber. The smoke forced the closure of the local primary school the next day. 3 months earlier, the wannabe music producer was evicted for failing to pay rent, so he turned standover man, sending threatening emails to his landlord. "We have all your addresses. We are coming for you, dog." Tune pleaded guilty to arson and storing explosive materials. The entire building and everything inside it burned to the ground. Prosecutors alleging the fire cost the owner a total of $5 million, and they're calling for Jaden Tune to serve a significant prison term. Already behind bars, he will learn his fate next month. Jade Vincent, 7 News.
There's been a deadly twist to an arson attack in Melbourne's northwest. The 65-year-old man police suspect started the blaze at his ex-partner's house has died in hospital from burns suffered in the inferno. The target escaped her Pascoe Vale house unharmed, but fire crews had to smash down a fence to rescue residents behind the building. The Prime Minister is under fire over an Alice Springs booze ban, with critics arguing it will do little to fix the town's crime wave. Anthony Albanese hasn't ruled out going even further, while also defending his brief visit to the Red Centre.
The scarred cityscape of our lawless Red Centre tells the story. Alcohol bans were lifted last July, Alice Springs imploded, so now it is back to the future.
Restrictions on the availability of alcohol.
Reduced trading, alcohol-free days and limits per person are not nearly enough for local businesses.
The same stupid thing over and over again.
For residents.
We have no sort of leadership for us.
A lack of leadership, I think.
And the Mayor.
It's safer for some of these kids to be on the street than at home.
Matt Patterson says governments are terrified of real solutions to tackle horrific domestic violence and sexual abuse for fear of the perception it is discriminatory.
And that's not about being black or white. That's just saying that these kids are not being looked after. So we just need to have that conversation.
Local campaigners say that means removing children from violent homes, and that, here, is politically explosive. The Global Crime Index ranks cities in Venezuela, South Africa and Brazil as among the worst, and the 17th most crime-riddled city on the planet is Alice Springs, Australia, worse than Cape Town, Tijuana, Mexico, or Syria's capital, Damascus. Fresh funding will boost high-visibility policing, surveillance cameras, support for women and emergency accommodation for victims of domestic abuse. A longer-term strategy is expected within 3 months. Robert Ovadia, 7 News.
Geelong residents face a mammoth clean-up after destructive storms lashed the surf coast. 3 months of rain fell in just a few hours, causing almost a dozen rescues.
A 25-fan salute at the Sphinx Hotel. Drying the sports bar carpet after water gushed in during a hectic storm. 130 emergency call-outs, almost half were in Corio.
Absolutely pouring through the front doors. It was actually like the River Nile.
95 millimetres of rain was the highest rainfall in the area, 3 times the monthly average in a few hours. The State Emergency Service car park, one of many that flooded.
It was a very busy day for us. I've been a member in the service for nearly 15 years and this was the second busiest day I've ever seen.
Here, an SES crew stops a van driving into floodwater. Others were too late for a warning. Some became stuck on the Princess Highway. It went under in 20 minutes. 11 people needed rescuing.
Where's he going? Oh, he's gone!
Don't know what's in the floodwater. There could be large potholes that have opened up, gravel that will cause you to lose traction.
Up to 7,500 properties were without power, most knocked off the grid by lightning strikes. By lunchtime today, almost all were reconnected. A sharp and fast summer storm leaving for some a slow clean-up. Blake Johnson, 7 News.
Entertainer Guy Sebastian is facing new legal dramas with police called to break up a fiery confrontation between the pop star and his neighbour that ended in a death threat.
False, made up by him. Come in, arrested me, dragged me out of the house, took me to the Maroubra police station, locked me up for 6.5 hours.
The pair has been locked in a bitter 6-year dispute over a brick fence. Soaring school costs are taking a toll, with a growing number of families forced to borrow money for their child's education. New data out today shows Melbourne parents are feeling the price pinch the most.
This year, school supplies alone are expected to cost Victorian parents almost $600 for each child in primary school. It's not a surprise to parents of twins Dimmy and Zoe, who start prep next week.
You start off thinking, oh, it's not going to be too bad, but of course it's 2 of everything. And not always 2 of everything, it's sometimes 4 of everything.
For older students, there are always items to replace.
Except new lunchboxes, because I lose them every day, and maybe new drink bottles.
NAB says demand for interest-free education loans has grown 130% in the past 4 years.
We're expecting $750,000 worth of loans to be written in January and February this year, which is nearly double pre-pandemic levels.
New research shows Melbourne is the most expensive capital city for a public education. A child starting prep this year will cost more than $102,000 over 13 years.
Our index has revealed that only 5% of the total cost of education in the government sector in Melbourne is contributed by school fees. 95% is made up of all of those ancillary costs.
Those include uniforms, electronic devices, camps and excursions.
The Education Department emphasises parent contributions must be voluntary. Individual school councils approve the amount parents are asked to pay, and the school must clearly list how the money will be spent.
Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
Police are facing a backlash over a water safety blitz Hope Wilson has the latest, and Hope sniffer dogs will be patrolling boat ramps as part of this crackdown.
Mitch, boaties have slammed this action as an overreaction. Right now, Victoria Police can only drug test the operator of a vessel and not others on board. This way they can seize illegal substances before they're even taken out on the water. It's part of a safety operation which starts tomorrow and goes until Sunday for Victoria's unofficial long weekend. 40,000 Victorians are licensed to take to the water. They're the focus of this week's safety blitz.
We've had quite a lot of drownings this year, so it's about stopping that. But it's about responsible behaviour on our jet skis in particular.
More than a third of infringements issued by water police this summer have been to jet ski riders.
We'll make no apologies, they will get particular attention and focus.
We want people out celebrating, we want people coming together and enjoying our magnificent waterways.
But many won't be celebrating Australia Day. Councils including Yarra, Darebin and Marybeck rescheduling citizenship ceremonies, and there won't be a march celebrating January 26. Instead, an Invasion Day rally is expected to fill city streets. Offices may also be fuller. Public sector employees are permitted to work and take another day off instead. Private companies are following suit.
For 3 years now, Medibank's been supporting our people to swap the January 26th public holiday to a different day. We've learned that this date holds a different meaning for different people.
Around 150 employees at Medibank will ignore the date. It's a changing trend in many workplaces. But it was back to tradition in Canberra. The Prime Minister hosted a breakfast for Australian of the Year finalists at the Lodge.
You are a vivid snapshot of the greatness of our modern nation.
Peter Bowl was expected to be named Young Australian of the Year. He won't head to Canberra in the wake of bombshell doping allegations.
Pete's a good mate of mine. I hope he's doing all right mentally. Got to look after his mental health first and foremost.
The winners will be announced tonight. Hope Wilson, 7 News.
Tim Watson's here with a look ahead to sport, and Tim, Damien Hardwick's toasting a successful getaway.
Mitch, the Tigers coach, has given an insight into his trip to the US. We'll hear from him shortly. Also, a major injury scare for Essendon as the Bombers get down and dirty with some new tactics. Aaron Finch guides the Renegades back to the Big Bash finals, while there was high drama between the Heat and the Hurricanes, and LeBron James went flying into the fans. Mitch, all that ahead in sport.
See you then. Thank you, Tim. Scammers are using QR codes to rip off customers at restaurants and cafes. Details are next. Also coming up, the race to contain a fire emergency in Melbourne's north. Kate Blanchett leads the Australian charge at the Oscars. Later, what experts want parents to know about school shoes.
And after a mild Australia Day, it heats up again over the long weekend. Full details later in 7 News.
A ride-on mower operator has sparked a fire emergency near homes in Melbourne's north. 11 crews fought quickly to bring the blaze under control just before 1 p.m. A large area of grass in Greenvale was burned, but fortunately there was no damage to any homes. Victorian diners are being urged to watch out for a new scam targeting customers in bars and restaurants. Criminals are stealing money and data by hijacking the QR code scheme used to order and pay for food.
Thanks to smartphones and QR codes, dining in has never been easier.
Diners are in a unique situation. They're relaxed, they're willing, they're wanting to pay.
But as they do, criminals are inventing new scams to hijack the technology, and patrons are the latest target.
And anybody could do it, basically, just by swiping a QR code.
Since the pandemic, ordering at a restaurant by QR code has become common practice, a fact scammers are exploiting.
Dubious people are coming along and putting QR stickers over the proper QR stickers.
The fake codes redirect diners to malicious websites designed to steal personal information or get you to enter your bank details. Australians lost more than $24.5 million to scams last year.
That's actually a win for scammers these days, and unfortunately it's just too easy.
These are the warning signs to spot a fake. Look for signs the QR code has been tampered with or covered up. Check to make sure the website you are directed to looks authentic. Some cyber experts recommend only using a restaurant's verified app to order and pay for food.
Essentially, I wouldn't be using my standard camera to scan any QR code because it's open game. You can go anywhere in the internet.
Of course, there's always the old-fashioned way of ordering and paying for your meal at the counter. But if it's too late and you've already fallen victim, then let the restaurant know and alert your bank.
We're asking patrons to just be vigilant when they go out.
Sonia Marinelli, 7 News.
2 alleged car thieves are in custody after a police chase came to a dramatic end in Toorak. A stolen Audi crashed into 2 police cars and a parked vehicle before ploughing through a fence. The arrest led detectives to another 2 cars they suspect were also stolen. New Zealand's new Prime Minister has been sworn in after Jacinda Ardern's shock resignation. 44-year-old Chris Hipkins has promised to tackle what he calls the pandemic of inflation. Ms Ardern was greeted by well-wishers as she left Parliament for the last time. Australia's Kate Blanchett has been nominated for an Academy Award for the 8th time in her career. But it's a film best described as a funny science fiction drama that's set to blitz this year's Oscars.
Then you realise.
A madcap slide through a twisted multiverse.
Very busy today. No time to help you.
Everything, everywhere, all at once. Dominating this year's nominations. 11 nods including Best Picture. Michelle Yeoh leading actress and a supporting call. A first for this familiar face. Jamie Lee Curtis recording her shock. Kate Blanchett's tormented conductor in Tar hitting the right notes with the Academy up for Best Lead Actress. The film up against Baz Luhrmann's Elvis for Best Picture. Shot in Australia, Austin Butler's work as the King recognised. Luhrmann, though, snubbed for Best Director. His wife, Catherine Martin, up for 3 statuettes, including Best Costume.
Who would want me to be a part of their life?
As a Hollywood revival story took shape. Brendan Fraser back, powerful in The Whale, and a favourite with the bookies. Less than 12 months on from the Will Smith slapping scandal that sent shockwaves through Hollywood, the Academy hopes that a diverse field, along with the inclusion of younger judges, will help reverse a decline in viewing numbers and interest. The Academy hoping the inclusion of blockbusters Avatar,
what the hell? Good morning, aviators.
And Top Gun will draw crowds, films hoping to pull off rare wins at both the box office and the Oscars.
Just want to manage expectations.
In the United States, David Woywood, 7 News.
There are new moves to protect Victorians looking for love on dating apps. The drive to make them safer is next on 7 News. Also coming up, a high achiever struck by tragedy. The warning she hopes will save lives. Victorian drivers facing a licence renewal fight. And Mary Poppins arrives in town, ready for takeoff. Victorians are now waiting more than a month for a new driver's licence. VicRoads says it's caused by delays with the manufacture of the cards and the mail service.
The advice that we have from VicRoads is that have your old licence with you. If you've got your renewal notice or your receipt from VicRoads, perhaps have that with you as well.
Victoria Police says it's aware of the delays and is expected to take it into consideration. Executives from the nation's biggest dating apps have been summoned by national leaders calling for urgent reform. The goal is to make women safer online as the number of assault cases skyrockets.
A decade ago, they were barely known. Now, dating apps are used by 3 million Australians.
And it is the most common place to meet a new partner is actually online and using these apps.
But today, a dating app summit to discuss ways of protecting users from harassment and violence. Talks that brought overseas-based bosses of some of the leading dating platforms.
I think the message is we all can get better. We recognise that there's more work that we can do and there's more work we're planning to do.
The meeting heard calls for user background checks, including for domestic violence, dating sites sharing information about persons of concern.
And also issue red flags when they think that a user might be in danger.
And when there are incidents reported, act on them.
Complaints should not be just another data point. They cannot go into the bottom drawer and just be ignored.
There have been recent calls for change after 31-year-old Sydney childcare worker Danielle Finlay-Jones was allegedly murdered by a man she met on a dating app. While it expects cooperation, the federal government today put dating apps on notice. It wants to lift safety levels as quickly as possible, and it's ready to force the issue. The E-Commissioner is already drawing up new mandatory codes for online operators. Chris Marr, 7 News.
Rising interest rates are putting added pressure on Victoria's debt levels, already by far the highest in the nation. The budget watchdog today took aim at the Andrews government, warning our chances of paying off record loans are getting harder by the day.
The budget budgeted for interest rate rises, but the buffer is wearing thin.
We are getting close, I might say.
Victoria's net debt is set to reach $165 billion by 2026, but a new report by the Independent Parliamentary Budget Office is warning the likelihood of paying debt down is shifting further into the future. The task of dealing with Victoria's debt burden is getting harder. The opposition says major projects like the SEC are yet to be fully costed.
That debt will continue to grow, that taxes will continue to grow, and our interest expense will continue to grow.
Being able to manage our debt is not an issue that greatly concerns me at the moment, but it's something that we have to constantly attend to.
At the November election, the state government promised to deliver a $1 billion surplus by 2026. They remain confident that can happen.
I would love to believe that Mr Palace can deliver a surplus anytime soon. I can't say that with any confidence though.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
Ukraine's weapons arsenal is growing, with Germany agreeing to provide Leopard 2 tanks despite initially balking at the request. The deal also paves the way for neighbouring countries like Poland to provide more firepower. The US is expected to send a fleet of Abrams tanks to Ukraine. Australia's brave around-the-world sailor Jessica Watson is using a devastating personal experience to campaign for stroke awareness. She lost her partner at just 29 years of age and now wants all young people to get their blood pressure checked.
Jessica Watson still needs all her famous grit and determination to cope with the tragic death of her partner Cam Dale 18 months ago. Sailing helps.
It hasn't been pretty. It's been very, very tough, tougher than I would have imagined. And yeah, when I say it's been a lifeline, it really kind of, there definitely were a few points where it was the thing I was clinging to, yeah.
Not long after she sailed around the world alone at 16 years old, she fell in love with fellow sailor Cam. Together for 10 years until he died of a massive stroke caused by undiagnosed high blood pressure at just 29.
Strokes for young, active people and high blood pressure is just not something that was in the slightest on our radar.
It's more common than you think, particularly in men.
Almost a quarter of stroke patients are under 55. That means 29 young Australians suffer a stroke every day, mostly because of high blood pressure. Despite her own grief, Jessica's campaigning to save lives, a legacy for Cam.
She has done some amazingly courageous things, but I think this is probably the most courageous.
For me, it's so simple. Get your blood pressure checked. For me, that's such an amazing way to honour Cam and to hopefully prevent this happening to others.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
A very good cause. A colourful commuter raised eyebrows in the city today, with Mary Poppins swapping her flying umbrella for a Bourke Street tram. The cast of the Mary Poppins musical delighted passengers as they made their way to Her Majesty's Theatre. The production opens this weekend. Experts are sounding a warning on school shoes. Next, what parents need to know to protect their children's feet. Also coming up, how a Melbourne jumping castle baron ordered attacks on his competitors. The share market reacts to new worrying inflation numbers, and why 6 minutes could be the key to getting fit. A jumping castle baron is facing more time in jail over a string of arson attacks to eliminate his rivals. A court was today told how his obsession for success reached dangerous heights.
James Balcombe was a bouncy castle baron who wanted to be king. So he masterminded a plan to wipe out his rivals by burning their warehouses to the ground. Business owners like Michael Andrew lost everything when Balcombe ordered the attacks at warehouses across Victoria. He also organised a hit on his own property to throw police off the scent. The 57-year-old was later arrested but skipped bail and evaded police for 2 years. He was eventually found living in WA under a fake name, disguising himself with a wig and manufacturing illegal postage stamps. Today, a court was told Balcombe may have been experiencing psychosis at the time of his offending and that a term of imprisonment will weigh more heavily on him. An expert has recommended the former party boss undergo a minimum of 100 psychological sessions. A judge will sentence Balcombe in the coming weeks. Estelle Greeping, 7 News.
Investors have been caught off guard as the market responded to today's inflation news. Network Finance editor Gemma Acton has more.
Yes, Pete. Take a look at how the market plunged right on cue as news of the higher than expected inflation figures broke. Throughout the day, though, Aussie shares were able to claw back some of those losses, leaving the ASX 200 just 22 points lower. Technology shares took the biggest hit. That sector tends to be the most vulnerable to the prospect of further rate hikes to fight inflation. But what hurt tech shares has helped the Aussie dollar today. It soared through 71 US cents. While oil is recovering from overnight losses, it fell on economic growth concerns stemming from poor company earnings. And globally, technology firms have already laid off more than 59,000 workers this year. That's on top of 160,000 job losses last year. Microsoft, Amazon and Alphabet carried out the bulk of the recent cuts, but due to big hiring sprees during COVID, their workforces are still far larger than pre-pandemic. Peter.
Gemma Acton reporting. Political power brokers have joined hundreds of mourners in Canberra for the funeral of Jim Molan. The Liberal senator and former Army Major General was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2021 and passed away peacefully, surrounded by his family last week. The 72-year-old was honoured with a formal Army salute. Parents are racing to fit their children with new school shoes just days before the start of term 1. Podiatrists are tonight sharing their expert advice to avoid the damage to growing feet.
The expense of sending children back to school comes hot on the heels of Christmas and summer holidays.
It's been probably around, say, $200 to $300 in total.
New school shoes are top of the list.
And he's very excited, aren't you? Yes. Yes.
The kids don't stop growing, right? So what they need is a pair of shoes that will last them the whole year.
Podiatrists say many children are wearing shoes that are too small and most aren't expertly fitted.
We see kids with changes happening to their feet from a very young age if their shoes aren't fitted properly.
Parents should ensure children can wiggle their toes and allow 1 centimetre of space between the big toe and the end of the shoe. The good news is quality shoes don't have to break the bank.
There's some very good brands that aren't expensive at all.
Parents spend around $2 billion in back-to-school costs each year, with school shoes and stationery among the key items purchased in January. Melbourne mum Zara Cooper couldn't find shoes she liked, so she invented her own. They're light, flexible and a global success.
Kids spend in excess of 1,000 hours on average in their school shoes, so it's probably the main shoe that you want to get right.
Allowing children to jump happily into the new school year. Jackie Quist, 7 News.
Just 6 minutes of high-intensity exercise a day could delay the onset of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Researchers say a short, vigorous workout increases the level of the protein BDNF.
BDNF is basically a fertiliser for your brain cells, so it helps promote brain cell growth and development, and in particular memory formation and storage.
Neither fasting nor extended low-intensity exercise had the same effect. Sport is next with Tim Watson, and Tim Essendon may have dodged a bullet today.
That's right, Mitch. One of their stars-needed scans will have details next as the rest of the team got down and dirty. While at the Tigers, there was high praise for Dustin Martin. Aaron Finch sends the Renegades into the Big Bash finals as Brisbane botches its run, chasing a thrilling finish. The Aussie Open semi-finals locked and loaded. We'll tell you why Stefanos Tsitsipas can consider himself lucky and why this NBA fan was left devastated as LeBron James took flight. Welcome back. Essendon's best and fairest Peter Wright has sent a shudder through the Bombers camp. He needed scans on an injured calf as coach Brad Scott upped the ante.
Bombers players got testy last week. It was supervised wrestling today, and while they navigated the grappling drills unscathed, Peter Wright injured his calf in match simulation, sent for scans.
No, nothing yet. I'll find out later today.
Late today, the Bombers' confident Wrights dodged a bullet, saying it was tightness and mainly precautionary. Essendon's match simulation was closed to cameras, but 4 umpires officiated. The AFL set to formally announce the major umpiring change within weeks. Damien Hardwick's back for the first time post-season, going on a study trip in the United States as part of an extended break.
I learned a lot. Don't want to give too much away, but we got some great insights about what's going to take us forward, hopefully, in season 2023.
Hardwick providing an update on Dustin Martin's progress.
He had a terrific session this week. We played a quarter of match practice and, he moved well, used the ball well, so we're very excited to see how he goes. He's training the house down at the moment, which is all we can ask. He's enjoying his footy.
Clubs have a mandated 4-day long weekend starting tomorrow. Blues players put through a solid session. With Sam Walsh out indefinitely, Zach Fisher's relishing an opportunity in the middle.
And Tim, there has been criticism this week of the AFL and North's position regarding Taron Thomas. North not sanctioning Thomas yet, despite driving unlicensed over the break and most significantly charged with threatening to distribute an intimate image. Now, Thomas still could be sanctioned by the AFL and North. One of the main reasons nothing's happened yet, the AFL and North are waiting importantly if he's formally found guilty, Tim.
Thanks, Tom. Greek star Stefanos Tsitsipas is feeling right at home at Melbourne Park after booking his spot in the Australian Open semi-finals. The women's draw is taking shape too, with Aryna Sabalenka soaring into the semis, with a resurgent Victoria Azarenka also making her mark.
There's a special bond between Stefanos Tsitsipas and Australia.
He's back in another semi-final.
Melbourne's Greek community is already in his corner, but the world number 4 hopes to recruit even more Aussie star power.
One of my favourite actresses comes from Australia, Margot Robbie. It would be nice to see her over there one day.
The straight sets win over Yuri Lehechka could have ended in disqualification.
He swings at anger and it nearly hits the ball kid, and if it does, he's shaking hands a loser in this match.
I'm a professional tennis player. I was not going to aim for the ball kid, obviously.
A decade on from her last Australian Open title, Victoria Azarenka will play Elena Rybakina in the semis.
Azarenka back in the last 4, down under.
Still scarred by allegations she faked injury during the 2013 semi-final, the 24th seed threw her support behind the hamstrung Novak Djokovic.
Assumptions and judgments and all those comments are just
No one has been more surprised by Magda Linette's rise than the world number 45.
She's done it with disbelief.
At 30 years old, the Pole is through to her first Grand Slam semi-final after a straight sets win over Karolina Pliskova. She'll play 5th seed Aryna Sabalenka.
Too good.
The Belarusian yet to drop a set after sweeping past Donna Vekic. And the competition got too hot for 20-year-old Ben Shelton, compatriot Tommy Paul, America's first men's semi-finalist since Andy Roddick in 2009. Nat Yanidis, 7 News.
The race for a Big Bash final spot is going down to the wire after a batting collapse set the scene for a thrilling finish to the season. The Hobart Miracle was perfect for Aaron Finch and the Renegades, with pressure now on David Warner and the Sydney Thunder.
6 days out from jumping on a plane to India.
Oh, what a cowman! And Marnus takes the catch.
Marnus Labuschagne took flight in the Launceston outfield. He had less luck with the bat. Needing just 19 runs from the final 4 overs with 6 wickets in hand, Brisbane somehow managed to botch the run chase. This final over full toss not called a no ball as the Hurricanes kept their slim finals hopes alive.
No way! Hurricanes, that is a miracle!
That was good news for the Renegades, who are now all but certain to finish in third.
That's superb. That might be the best shot he's played in this innings.
418 runs this season. Aaron Finch's match-winning 63 not out against the Strikers. The third time this year he's guided the Renegades home in his new role at number 4. The men in red set to host the knockout on Sunday. The Thunder must beat the Stars tonight to make the finals. Otherwise, the Heat and Hurricanes will face off again in the Eliminator on Friday. Kane Richardson is in some doubt with back soreness. The majority of Test stars set to be available for the first lot of finals before they head out to India on Tuesday. Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
The Stars and Thunder clash begins straight after the news on 7. Mate to basketball now, and LeBron James gave Lakers fans a scare after landing hard in the front row.
Goes into the seats, up and over.
The superstar returned to become the only player to ever score 40 points against all 30 NBA teams. But the Lakers went down to the Clippers. Meanwhile, this young fan travelled from Argentina to Miami to see Jimmy Butler, only to find out the Heat star pulled out at the last minute with a back injury. Word got around and the devastated boy got courtside along with some merchandise. It all ended very well for him. In fact, probably better than had Jimmy been there.
Yeah, indeed. Nice touch. Indeed, nice. Wasn't it? And good to see all AFL teams at the moment training the house down.
Yes, that won't be the last time we hear that either.
No, thank you very much, Tim. Jane Bunn is next with the forecast. And Jane, how does it look for the long weekend?
Well, Mitch, we'll see it all. It'll be mild, warm and some hot weather. I'll show you which day is which next.
The Natalie Bar you never knew.
This is my rejection letter from Channel 7.
Her mum shares her childhood secrets on Sunrise.
Hello again. We're heading into a mild Australia day before it heats up over the long weekend. Our humid air mass brings foggy low cloud at first, but that had cleared the Melbourne area by mid-morning and it shot up to 30 in the sunshine. There was a field of cumulus cloud out there in the afternoon. Now these don't produce any rain, not like the towering ones we had yesterday. Quite a few suburbs reached 32. Then there was a very weak cool change this afternoon. Temperatures bobbed around in the high 20s for most suburbs. It's still up in the high 20s out there now for most, while near the coast or the water, it is down in the low 20s. The foggy low cloud cleared southern Victoria for sunshine mixed with a sea of cumulus. Also not big enough to produce any wet weather. We are all dry out there today. The weak cool change reached the southwest first, so Portland was 10 degrees cooler than Sale. A trough is weak, but now we have a cold front approaching. High pressure protects us and makes the front only cross Tasmania. That high has moved right on in by tomorrow night. So tomorrow we are mild. It's warm on Friday, then it's hot on Saturday. Then the next change moves through, making it mild again for Sunday. The weekend one, that's a bit stronger. It comes with this band of patchy rain and hit and miss thunderstorms. That's later Saturday into Sunday morning. Now there's not much here, but if we look further afield, there's certainly a lot going on. An active period in the tropics extending rain into the south from time to time. Now in Victoria, our eastern ranges are likely to see the most of that wet weather. Well, there's not much for the rest over the next week. Around the nation tomorrow, hot and sunny in Brisbane and Perth. Storms coming to Sydney's western suburbs, but they should miss the city and beaches. Early cloud in Adelaide, clearing to a sunny day. All the action tomorrow is up in the tropics. To Victoria, areas of cloud over the south with isolated light showers. That'll clear to sunshine later. Sunshine all day in the north, but the eastern ranges in through here, you can see the risk of afternoon thunderstorms. Mild in the south, only warm in the north, so a reduction on today thanks to light to moderate southerly winds. Closer in, the morning is actually quite cloudy. There are these brief light showers passing through. It's a millimetre at best. All that activity clears early afternoon and bright sunshine returns. So after a light shower late morning and around lunchtime tomorrow, sunshine returns from mid-afternoon onwards, but only rises to 22. Tomorrow is the mild day. On the 8 Day Out, like a Friday, it is delightful. A great day to take off work and make it a long weekend. Waiting for a top of 27 in the bright sunshine. Saturday, hot, I think 37. Cool change in the early evening. There's the risk of storms, a bit of drizzle into Sunday morning when we do have mild conditions, but sunshine returning. So cloud and brief light showers, that's tomorrow late morning. Then we head into sunny afternoon and 22, Mitch.
You recommend the 4-day long weekend?
Absolutely. Take Friday off.
Thank you, Jane. And that's the way it is this Wednesday, the 25th of January. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.